as he works to get the bipartisan Senate border deal passed. And also making a border visit Thursday, former President Donald Trump.
And I want to talk about another top issue, the border. Now, I love how eyes turn on in Biden.
Candidates who are expected to lock horns in a presidential rematch are trying to turn America's broken immigration system.
House Republicans to support a border deal that he cut with Senate Democrats.
And staying in the United States, U.S. President Joe Biden is set to make a rare trip to the U.S.-Mexico border this Thursday.
Nobody has ever seen anything like we're witnessing right now. It is a very sad thing for our country.
Biden, who last visited the southern border in January 2023, has been heavily criticized by Trump and Republicans for his handling of migrants crossing into the U.S., competing trips to the border. On Thursday, when former President Donald Trump is also anticipated to visit the southern border, President Joe Biden will make an uncommon trip to the U.S.-Mexico border. The White House released a statement saying Biden will travel to Brownsville, Texas to meet with U.S. Border Patrol agents, law enforcement officials, and local leaders. He will discuss the urgent need to pass the Senate bipartisan border security agreement, the toughest and fairest set of reforms to secure the border in decades, added the statement. He will reiterate his calls for congressional Republicans to stop playing politics and to provide the funding needed for additional U.S. Border Patrol agents, more asylum officers, fentanyl detection technology, and more. NBC News was informed by two people who are aware of Trump's preparations that he will make a speech near Eagle Pass, Texas, which is roughly 330 miles away from Biden's trip. Carolyn Levitt, the press secretary for the Trump campaign, stated in a statement that Biden is being sent to the border by the White House because she believed he was losing terribly in the 2024 election. Biden's last-minute insecure attempt to chase President Trump to the border won't cut it, she stated. Following a campaign gathering in New York on Monday, Biden gave reporters an update on his travel schedule, saying, "I've been planning on going Thursday. What I didn't know is my good friend is apparently going," referring to Trump. When asked if he would be meeting with migrants while on the trip, Biden refused to say. January 2023 marked Biden's most recent visit to the border and his first as president. His infrequent trip to the southern border coincides with attacks on his administration's management of immigrants entering the country from Republicans and President Trump. As GOP candidates intensify their attacks on the president and Democrats, immigration will undoubtedly be a major topic in the upcoming general election season.
President Biden will travel to the southern border in Texas this Thursday.
And staying in the United States, U.S. President Joe Biden is set to make a rare trip to the U.S.-Mexico border this Thursday.
Border Patrol officers, he's going to get a sense of what's happening on the ground, and he's going to use the opportunity to push.
As he works to get the bipartisan Senate border deal passed, and also making a border visit Thursday, former President Donald Trump.
Nobody has ever seen anything like we're witnessing right now. It is a very sad thing for our country.
On arrival. And then the former president, President Trump, is going to be about 300 miles away.
Biden has chastised Republicans for not passing legislation to address the flood of migrants. In a January NBC News poll, 57% of registered voters said Trump would be better at guarding the border compared to 22% who thought Biden would do a better job. According to the same poll, 48% of respondents said they would trust Biden to treat immigrants humanely compared to 31% who felt the same way about Trump. The bipartisan border security and foreign aid plan, which had Senator James Lankford, a Republican from Oklahoma, as a key negotiator, was destroyed earlier this month by Senate Republicans. After some pressure from Trump, Republicans eventually opted to torpedo the plan. The GOP-controlled House barely impeached Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas over his handling of the border in a 214 to 213 vote, sending Senate Republicans packing and dashing any expectations for substantive congressional action to alleviate the situation at the border. Many Republicans, for their part, have contended that Biden can use his executive authority to handle the migrant situation. According to NBC News last week, the administration is thinking of acting unilaterally, which would make it harder for migrants to get asylum at the southern border and swiftly deport those who have recently entered the country but don't fit the requirements. even though the Trump administration implemented a number of stringent immigration laws, such as employing Title 42 to deport additional immigrants, some of the largest rates of border crossings in recent memory were seen under his presidency. For example, according to the Department of Homeland Security at the time, the number of undocumented migrants crossing the border in 2019 reached a 12-year high. Biden's last visit. President Joe Biden made his first trip to the U.S.-Mexico border since taking office, visiting El Paso, Texas, to evaluate enforcement operations at the U.S.-Mexico border. Critics argue that President Biden's administration has not visited the southern border sooner and implemented ineffective strategies. Biden intends to insist on funding for border security measures and moving toward comprehensive immigration reform. During his visit, Biden evaluated enforcement activities at the Bridge of the Americas port of entry, El Paso's busiest port and recipient of $600 million from the bipartisan infrastructure package. He also met with representatives of the charitable and religious communities that have assisted in coping with the influx of migrants. Congressmen and dignitaries, including Republican Governor Greg Abbott, presented Biden with a letter requesting additional border enforcement measures. The letter included requests to prosecute, imprison, and remove more people under existing federal laws and resume construction of the border wall. Biden departed for the North American Leaders Summit in Mexico City in 2023. His administration unveiled new plans to strengthen border security, increase the number of legal avenues for asylum seekers, restricting asylum claims at the southern border, and extending the application of the COVID-19 prohibition known as Title 42. This policy changed hundreds of Nicaraguans, Haitians, and Cubans back across the southern border each month, while providing more official channels for immigrants to request asylum in the United States without traveling up north.
The two leading candidates in the 2024 election are making a trip to the southern border on the very same day.
And we're going to look at Joe Biden, and we're going to look him right in the eye. He's destroying our country.
And I want to talk about another top issue, the border. Now, I love how eyes turn on in Biden.
That location, most likely he will talk about why he feels that the governor of Texas did the right thing.
Will not be alone. Around 520 kilometers away, Donald Trump will also be there as well.
Immigration is going to be one of the biggest issues in the November elections.
Bipartisan border security bill. Less than 48 hours after Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma released a border security measure and Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell gave his blessing, Republican senators made it apparent on Tuesday that they would kill the legislation their party negotiated with Democrats. Overridden by members of the Senate GOP, House Speaker Mike Johnson and former President Donald Trump and McConnell acknowledged that the bill has no chance of passing. Whether or not this thing could ever become law was the subject of a very heated debate, and the Speaker has made it quite obvious to us that it won't become legislation, McConnell said to reporters. Thus, I would like to commend Senator Lankford for his outstanding work in negotiating with the opposition and winning the Border Council support. However, it appears to me and the majority of our members that we have little prospect of passing legislation at this time. More succinctly expressed by Senator John Kennedy, the bill is deader than 4 o'clock. Republican senators opposed the bill shortly after it was released on Sunday. The resistance, which included members of McConnell's leadership team, had intensified by Tuesday.
We're going to say, Joe, you're fired. Get out. Get out, Joe. You're fired.
House Republicans to support a border deal that he cut with Senate Democrats.
And it will certainly create for a very interesting on-the-ground scenario for law enforcement and everyone else involved.
The Border Patrol and the Department of Justice, really, and the state of Texas over who controlled that park and the right.
It's poisoning the blood of our country. It's so bad, and people are coming in with disease.
Candidates who are expected to lock horns in a presidential rematch are trying to turn America's broken immigration system.
When the bill was brought to the floor on Wednesday, it became apparent that they wouldn't get the 60 votes needed to end a filibuster. Thus, assistance to Israel and the Ukraine will likewise be temporarily suspended. Senate Minority Whip John Toon stated, I would expect that the motion to proceed to the bill will fail in reference to the scheduled procedural vote on Wednesday that would start the bill's review. When asked if there was still hope for the measure, no was the response from lead Democratic negotiator Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut. He expressed his displeasure at the Republicans' 180-degree turn on the bill. "We wrote a law that was too useful. We managed to come to an agreement that would truly resolve the issue. Republicans, it turns out, are not interested in resolving the issue." Murphy told reporters they want to use the immigration debate as a political football to further their goal. The fact that there was formally a distinction between the House Republican caucus and the Senate Republican caucus is also disheartening. Nothing about it is different. They have the same dysfunction. Their ties to President Trump are equally strong. Senator John Fetterman was approached in the Capitol's hallways by Senator Chris Coons, who informed him it's unfreaking credible. Who knows what comes next? In the event that the package containing border provisions fails, Senate Majority Leader Charles Schumer declined to say on Tuesday whether he would separate the 8 commitments for Israel and Ukraine. "We're going to keep at it because we feel that this is so important for the security of Israel and the Ukraine at the border, as well as for the security of America," Schumer stated. "Republicans will hear from us in the future. We're going to persevere. Tomorrow, we shall have a vote. We're going to keep going. Pay attention." While opposing the border package, Senator Todd Young, a Republican from Indiana, urged Congress to vote separately on the 8 provisions. In the meantime, Congress should provide vital security assistance to Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan, he stated on X. "We cannot turn our backs on these partners and allies at this crucial moment, nor let our support get bogged down in political squabbles over immigration laws." A separate, potentially contentious vote on Israel funding is scheduled for Tuesday night in the House. Johnson didn't indicate on Tuesday that a vote on Ukraine aid would be permitted by the Republican-led House. Although he stated that the border security plan is a non-starter in the House, he isn't prepared to back any additional funding. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Republican from Georgia, is one member who has threatened to push a vote to remove Johnson should he approve aid to Ukraine. "We'll continue to discuss the Ukraine measure. It hasn't been given up on," Johnson remarked. However, there's still a great deal of work to be done in relation to the responses that the White House must give us. That's going to do it for this video, you guys. See you next time, and bye for now.